Hello everyone, this is your friend Naruto Fix, and we are back with another epic What If Naruto fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto's mother became mentally broken after a heart attack? If you love Naruto fanfics, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the journey with me. So, let's start the fanfic. The village of Konoha was glowing under the sunset. The same warmth that once wrapped around a little boy's laughter now felt colder, emptier. Naruto Uzumaki, barely 12, ran across the hospital corridor, his sandals slapping against the polished floor. His eyes were wide, red, terrified. "Mom, where is she?" A nurse stopped him, her hands trembling slightly. "Naruto, your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, she's stable now, but..." He didn't wait for her to finish. He burst into the room. The strong woman who once laughed loudly, whose presence filled every corner of their small home, now sat weakly on the bed. Her red hair was messy, her eyes vacant. She looked past Naruto, as if he wasn't even there. "Mom, it's me, it's Naruto." Her lips trembled. A faint smile appeared, then faded. "Naruto," she whispered, voice cracking like glass. "He's gone, the QB took him, my baby is gone." Naruto froze. His chest felt tight, his breath shallow. "No, Mom, I'm right here." But Kushina's hands trembled, clutching the blanket. "Stay away, I won't let you hurt him again." And in that single moment, Naruto realized the truth, his mother's heart hadn't just failed that day. Her mind had too. Days passed. The doctors said her body was healing, but her mind wasn't. Tsunade, the newly returned Sannin, did what she could. "It's a trauma-induced psychosis," she told the Hokage. Her mind stuck in the night of the QB attack. Her heart gave out, and when it came back, part of her didn't. Naruto sat outside the room, knees pulled to his chest. He listened to the muffled sounds, his mother's screams, her confusion, her tears. Every sound tore him apart. He tried everything. He brought her flowers. He drew her silly pictures. He wore her favorite ramen apron, pretending to cook for her. But every time he stepped close, she flinched. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she whispered, "You're not my Naruto." That was the moment something inside him began to die. One evening, when the hospital lights dimmed, Naruto slipped out of the window. He wandered through the quiet streets of Konoha, the same streets where people once whispered behind his back, "The demon child, the cursed one." Now, their whispers didn't hurt anymore. Nothing could hurt more than seeing his own mother forget him. He sat alone near the Hokage monument, staring at the stars. He whispered to the night, Why does everything I love keep breaking?" The wind answered with silence. That night, a darker thought crept into his mind, one that scared him. "If even Mom forgot me, maybe I was never meant to be remembered." The next morning, Naruto didn't visit the hospital. He trained instead, harder, longer, breaking his knuckles against the wooden post until his hands bled. He screamed between every punch. For the mother who didn't recognize him. For the loneliness that never left. For the pain he couldn't speak about. Iruka found him hours later, breathing heavily, eyes red and empty. "Naruto, stop. You're hurting yourself." Naruto's voice was cold. "Pain doesn't matter anymore. She's hurting worse." Iruka didn't know what to say. He just hugged the boy tightly, the way a parent should. Naruto didn't cry. Not this time. His tears had dried somewhere between her heartbeat and her silence. Weeks turned into months. Kushina was moved to a long-term care wing. Sometimes she smiled at the flowers by her window. Sometimes she sang lullabies to the air. But she never said Naruto's name again. And yet, every morning, Naruto came. He left a bowl of ramen on her bedside table and whispered quietly before leaving. "I'll bring you back, Mom. Even if I have to fight the gods themselves." Little did he know, his words were not a promise to her. They were a vow that would soon twist his destiny into something far darker. The morning light spilled gently through the hospital window, touching the pale walls that had witnessed more tears than laughter. The rhythmic beeping of machines echoed softly, a cruel reminder that life was still there, just not the way it used to be. Kushina Uzumaki sat by the window, her eyes blank yet strangely peaceful, staring at the cherry blossoms fluttering outside. The pink petals drifted on the wind, dancing in a world she no longer seemed part of. And on the other side of the glass door stood Naruto. The boy who once filled every room with noise, mischief, and unstoppable energy, now stood frozen, quiet, distant, carrying the kind of silence that only grief can carve. He clutched a small paper flower in his hand, something he had made during the night. It was red, like her hair. He had folded it carefully, over and over again, until his fingers cramped. Because it was all he could give her. He slowly entered. "Good morning, Mom," he said, voice trembling with a forced cheer. "Look what I made you. Remember how you used to say red flowers bring good luck?" Kushina's eyes flickered, faintly. For a second, just a second, Naruto thought he saw recognition. But then it vanished. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that didn't belong to this world. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "My son used to love red flowers too, he was just your age." Quote. Naruto's chest tightened. His fingers shook. I'm your son, Mom." He took a step closer, holding out the paper flower like an offering. "I'm Naruto, your Naruto." She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to some faraway sound. Then, softly, she said, "Naruto, he's gone, dear. He died that night. The fox took him." The flower slipped from his fingers. It fluttered down like a wounded bird, landing silently on the floor between them. Naruto didn't move. He didn't cry. He just stared at the fragile piece of paper, lying forgotten just like him. That night, Naruto didn't go home. He sat by the old swing near the academy, his favorite spot since childhood. The same swing where other parents picked up the children, smiling and laughing, while he watched from a distance. The moon was bright, too bright. It lit up everything except the empty feeling inside his chest. Iruka found him there hours later. "Hey, Naruto," he said gently, sitting down beside him. Naruto didn't look up. He was drawing lines in the dirt with a stick, carving circles over and over, as if trying to trap his thoughts inside them. "She doesn't even know who I am anymore," he murmured. Iruka said nothing. "I thought, after everything, I'd finally have a family. I'd finally have someone who looks at me and says, 'I love you, Naruto.'" His voice broke. "But now she looks at me like I'm a stranger." Iruka's eyes softened. "Naruto, she's sick. She doesn't mean it." Naruto finally turned his head, his blue eyes glassy, distant. "Then why does it feel like I've lost her twice?" Quote. There was no answer to that. Days turned into a slow blur. Naruto went to the hospital every morning, before training. He'd bring her small gifts, flowers, ramen, origami, even little jokes he used to tell her when she laughed for real. But every time, her reactions were the same. A polite smile, a confused look, sometimes fear. Other times, she'd reach out suddenly, grab his hand, and whisper things that made his blood run cold. "Don't let him out, don't let the fox out, he'll hurt my baby again." Naruto would freeze, unable to breathe. Because she was talking about him. He was the fox in her broken memory. He was the monster that took her son. And though it wasn't true, part of him began to believe it. The following week, Tsunade called Naruto to her office. Her tone was kind, but firm. "You've been visiting too often," she said. "You need to take care of yourself too, Naruto. This isn't your fault." Quote. Naruto looked down at his hands. "If it's not my fault, then why is it happening to her? Why does she look at me like she's scared?" Tsunade sighed. "Because sometimes the mind protects itself by forgetting pain. But in her case, that pain was you, or at least the memory of losing you. Her heart broke trying to protect you, Naruto. You can't blame yourself for that." He wanted to believe her. He really did. But deep inside, a quiet whisper told him otherwise. "You were always the cause, weren't you? Since the day you were born." He clenched his fists. "If I can't make her remember, then I'll make her feel safe again. Somehow. From that day on, Naruto changed. He stopped talking much. His laughter faded. He trained alone at night, often staring into the reflection of his own eyes, the same eyes she had once looked into with love, now only filled with guilt and desperation. He began reading books about memory, trauma, healing, things a shinobi would rarely care about. He visited the library late at night, sitting under the dim light, whispering her name as if the words themselves could bring her back. He found old scrolls about chakra and emotional resonance, the way emotions could influence energy flow. Maybe, he thought, if he could reach her chakra network, he could remind her who he was. But every attempt failed. He'd sit beside her, channeling chakra softly through her hand, whispering memories, their walks, her cooking, her laughter, until exhaustion took him. Sometimes, she'd look at him with a flicker of recognition. Then, just like that, she'd slip away again. Every time it happened, it broke him a little more. One night, as the hospital lights dimmed and most patients slept, Naruto sneaked into her room again. He sat beside her bed, the moonlight brushing her pale face. Her hair, once radiant and wild, now hung lifeless around her shoulders. He reached out and took her hand gently. It was warm, soft, fragile. "Mom," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Do you remember the night you used to tuck me in? You'd tell me stories about Dad, about how he was brave and stupid and kind all at once." No response, just the faint rise and fall of her chest. He continued anyway. "You said one day I'd grow up to be like him. But, how can I be like him if I can't even protect you?" He felt something wet slide down his cheek. He hadn't even realized he was crying. "I'd do anything," he whispered. "Anything to see you smile at me again. Even if it means giving up everything else." He didn't notice Tsunade standing quietly at the doorway, watching him. Her heart ached for him, but she knew there was nothing she could do. Healing the body was easy. Healing a broken heart, that was something even chakra couldn't fix. Weeks passed. Naruto began losing sleep. The dark circles under his eyes deepened, his energy waned, and even his friends noticed his silence. Sakura tried to cheer him up. "Come on, Naruto, she'll get better. You just have to keep believing." He smiled weakly. Yeah, believing. But his eyes told another story, one of exhaustion and quiet despair. Sasuke, though silent, noticed it too. One evening, during training, he finally spoke. "Do you really think she'd want you to destroy yourself like this?" Naruto froze mid-punch. "What do you know about it?" he snapped. "You don't have a mom to lose." The words hung in the air like a blade. Sasuke's eyes darkened, but he didn't react. He just turned away. "No," he said quietly. "But I know what it's like to live with ghosts." Quote. Those words lingered in Naruto's head long after Sasuke left. One night, Naruto dreamt. He saw himself standing in a vast white field, snow falling gently, endless silence. In the distance, a woman's silhouette appeared. Red hair, flowing like fire. He ran toward her, shouting, "Mom! Please wait." She turned slowly, smiling faintly. "Naruto." For the first time, her voice was warm, soft, the way it used to be. He reached out his hand, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I'm here, Mom. Please, don't leave again." But as soon as he touched her hand, she vanished, her body dissolving into dust carried by the wind. Naruto screamed, collapsing to his knees, clutching the empty air. And then, a whisper echoed behind him. "It's your fault. If you had never been born, she would still be whole." He turned, and saw himself standing there. Same face, same eyes, but this version of him smiled cruelly. "You are the fox in her heart, Naruto. You're the reason she broke." Naruto woke up drenched in sweat, his heart pounding, hands shaking. He stumbled to the mirror and stared at his reflection. For a brief moment, he didn't recognize the boy staring back. The next day, he didn't go to the hospital. For the first time in months, he stayed away, afraid that if she looked at him again with those empty eyes, he'd break for good. Instead, he went to their old house. Everything was covered in dust. The scent of her cooking was long gone, replaced by silence. On the table lay an old photograph, him and Kushina, taken before her heart attack. She was smiling, holding him close. He was laughing, carefree. He ran his thumb over the photo, tracing her face gently. I'll bring you back, he whispered. No matter how long it takes. Even if I have to lose myself to do it. He didn't notice how hollow his voice sounded, or how far from the boy he once was. That night, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling, something changed inside him. Not anger, not hatred, just emptiness, the kind that doesn't shout or cry, but quietly consumes everything you are. He began to understand something terrible, that love, when left unanswered for too long, begins to decay. And when it does, it becomes something darker. He wasn't there yet, but the path had begun. And somewhere, in the quiet of the hospital room, Kushina stirred in her sleep. For the briefest moment, she whispered his name. Naruto. The wind outside rustled softly, carrying the sound toward the lonely boy who couldn't hear it. The sky over Konoha was still the same pale blue, but Naruto had stopped noticing colors. Days bled into one another, sunrise, training, hospital, nightfall. A rhythm without music. He slept less. Every night his mind replayed the same picture, his mother's face turning away, her eyes sliding past him as though he were a stranger passing in the corridor of her memory. The apartment felt heavier now. The ramen bowls remained unwashed, a few scrolls lay open on the floor where he'd fallen asleep mid-study. He had tried to fill the silence with noise once, music boxes from a market stall, the hum of the kettle, even frogs croaking outside, but nothing could reach the stillness that lived behind his ribs. 1. Echoes in the quiet. It began small, a whisper, faint and quick, that slipped between the sounds of the city. Greater than Naruto. He would lift his head too fast, hope breaking across his face, then the moment would fade, leaving only the wind rustling through. The paper on his desk. He told himself it was memory, not madness. If he could still hear her, maybe that meant part of her still remembered him. So he started listening, really listening, to the spaces between things, the hush before the rain, the sigh of the window when the wind changed. Each time he thought he heard her, he whispered back, I'm here. 2. The hospital garden. Soon it allowed him to take Kushina to the small garden behind the hospital during the mornings. She said sunlight might help. Naruto sat with her under the plum tree. She stared at the sky while he peeled oranges for her. Sometimes she smiled at the taste, a faint curve of her lips that made his chest ache. Do you like the garden, Mom? Quote. She nodded slowly. It smells like home. That sentence alone carried enough warmth to light a week inside him. He held onto it like treasure, replaying it at night to chase away the darker thoughts. But the next day she forgot again. She asked the nurse who the blonde boy was and whether the Hokage allowed visitors from outside the village. Naruto only smiled. Yeah, he said quietly. They do. 3. Sleepless nights. Sleep refused to come. When he closed his eyes, memories looped, her laughter, her scolding, her voice calling him, my little hero. Each memory ended at the same place, the hospital bed and the empty gaze. He began keeping a notebook beside his futon. Every time he woke, he wrote down what he remembered of her old life, recipes, jokes, stories she'd told. The pages filled with fragments. Greater than she laughed when Dad burned the stew. She said the world isn't cruel, just tired. She loved red tulips more than roses. He thought that if he wrote enough, maybe he could build a bridge back to her, word by word. 4. Iruka's visit. Iruka knocked one afternoon. Naruto, you haven't been in class for 3 days. Naruto blinked at the calendar. He hadn't realized time had slipped. I'm fine, sensei. Just training. Iruka looked around the cluttered room, the notebooks, the untouched food, the exhaustion in Naruto's eyes. You're trying to carry something too heavy alone, he said. You can talk to people. Me. Tsunade. Anyone. Naruto's voice came out small. If I stop carrying it, who will? Iruka didn't have an answer. He only put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Then let the rest of us walk beside you for a while. When he left, Naruto felt lighter for a few minutes. Then the silence crept back. 5. The letter. That evening, he wrote a letter to his mother though she would never read it. Greater than Mom. I miss you. I know you don't know me right now, but I still remember everything about you. I remember how your hair smelled like summer. I remember how you yelled when I forgot to wash dishes. I even remember the lullaby you pretended you didn't know the words to. If memories can fade, maybe love can remind them. So I'll keep telling you who I am until you remember, even if it takes forever. Love, your Naruto. He folded the letter and placed it in the pocket of her coat when she wasn't looking. A week later, he found it folded neatly back on his table. No one could have known it was there. He stared at it for a long time. Then smiled faintly. Maybe you do remember. 6. Between reality and memory, Naruto began visiting the garden even after Kushina had gone back inside. He'd sit under the plum tree and speak softly, pretending she was still beside him. Hey mom, you wouldn't believe how strong Sakura's getting. Mom, Iruka said I should eat better. You used to say that too, right? Sometimes he swore he heard an answer, not words, but a feeling, like warmth spreading through his chest. He started to understand that memory wasn't only in the mind, it lived in everything touched by love. The bench they'd shared, the smell of the plums, the paper flowers, each held a piece of her. He realized he didn't need to chase her across the fog of her broken mind. He could meet her in the spaces where love still remembered. 7. The small return. One morning, as he walked her back from the garden, she stopped suddenly. Her eyes softened, uncertain but searching. Your eyes, she murmured. They're so blue. Just like. She paused, the words trembling. Naruto held his breath. Just like my son's. He smiled, tears burning behind his eyes. He must be lucky to look like me then. Quote. She laughed quietly. The sound was fragile but real. For that heartbeat, mother and son existed in the same world again. Later, when she forgot, he didn't cry. He had learned that healing didn't mean erasing pain, it meant learning to live through it. 8. Acceptance. Weeks turned into months. The doctors said her condition was stable, which was their way of saying unchanged. Naruto still visited every day. Sometimes she knew his name, sometimes she didn't. But each time he entered, he smiled. Because love wasn't a bargain anymore, it was a choice he made, again and again, even when it hurt. He began training with a new quietness, no longer to escape his pain but to understand it. He told himself, if I can carry this and still stand, maybe she'll feel that strength too. At night, when exhaustion dragged him toward sleep, he whispered into the dark. I'll keep being your son, Mom. Even when you forget, I'll remember enough for both of us. And somewhere between dream and waking, he heard her laughter again, clear, soft, and whole. He smiled. This time he didn't chase it. He simply let it stay. The mornings had become quiet rituals. Naruto would wake before dawn, the village still wrapped in shadows, and walk the silent streets to the hospital. The air was crisp, almost bitter with the fading chill of autumn, and each step he took felt heavier than the last. He carried a small bag each day, folded papers, crayons, origami, a few oranges, and sometimes a bowl of ramen. Little things she might remember. Small things that once could make her smile. The first time she recognized him, it was an accident. She had been sitting by the window, staring at the sky, hands folded neatly in her lap. Naruto quietly set down a paper flower and whispered, "Good morning, Mom." Her head turned slightly. A faint flicker passed through her eyes, a warmth that was almost recognition. You, her voice trembled. Are you, Naruto? He froze. His heart raced. This was it. The bridge he had been building for months, the fragile thread connecting memory to reality, might finally hold. Yes, Mom, it's me, he said softly, kneeling beside her. It's your Naruto. She blinked, slowly nodding. And for a heartbeat, she reached out her hand. The fingers that had felt so distant for months were warm and alive again. Naruto's chest tightened. Tears stung his eyes, but he swallowed them. This was too precious to ruin. 1. Fragile steps forward. For the next few weeks, Naruto built on this small victory. He spoke gently, recalling stories from her past, the way she had danced in the kitchen while cooking, She had scolded him for sneaking too many sweets, her laughter echoing through their old home. Sometimes she responded. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she laughed. Sometimes she seemed to forget entirely, staring into the distance as if the words were being spoken in a dream she could not reach. Naruto learned patience. He learned that healing could not be forced. He learned to love her in pieces, in fragments, in fleeting moments of clarity. Every day, he left the hospital carrying a quiet hope. A hope he whispered to himself under the stars, tomorrow, she might remember a little more. 2. The weight of silence. Yet the emotional toll was immense. Nights were the hardest. In his small room at the academy dormitories, Naruto would sit by the window, the moonlight painting shadows across his floor. He often found himself whispering to the empty air. "Mom, do you remember me?" The silence answered. Sometimes he imagined her presence beside him. He would close his eyes and picture her smiling, as she had in the old photographs, her red hair gleaming in sunlight, her laughter ringing in the quiet. But as soon as he opened his eyes, she was gone again. The empty room, the quiet wind against the window, reminded him that she existed only partially in this world, trapped somewhere between memory and her fractured mind. The loneliness pressed down on him like a weight he could not shake. He sometimes wondered if this was his fate, to live with a mother who could not fully know him, to love her without being loved in return. 3. Shadows of guilt. Even in moments of fragile connection, guilt gnawed at him. Did I cause this? He thought, gripping his fists. Was my existence the reason her mind broke? Could she have been whole if I'd never been born? These thoughts haunted him endlessly. In quiet moments, he imagined walking through the village streets alone, faceless, unimportant. And yet, when he considered the alternative, living in a world where she was completely gone, he could not accept it. He began to talk to himself aloud, fragments of dialogue between the Naruto who exists, and the Naruto who fears himself. "You're not her monster," he whispered one night, gripping the pillow. "But what if I am?" His inner voice replied, sharp and accusing. "You are not," he insisted, pressing his forehead to the fabric. "I'm her son. I love her. That's all I am." The argument repeated nightly, leaving him drained but strangely alive. 4. Small victories. There were victories, small and fleeting, but enough to keep him going. One day, as Naruto sat beside her in the hospital garden, Kushina reached out and touched his hand without hesitation. "You're very patient, Naruto," she whispered. I like that about you." His heart skipped a beat. Words could not describe the surge of relief, of joy, of grief mingled together. He laughed softly through tears. "I learned from the best," he said. "You always taught me to never give up." She smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering with recognition that he could hold onto, fragile but real. 5. Nights of reflection. That night, Naruto lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The events of the day played over and over in his mind. A single touch, a single word, yet it meant more than any battle he had ever fought. He thought of all the times he had wanted her approval as a child, all the times he had screamed for attention and been scolded for his antics. And now, for the first time in months, he realized that approval wasn't even the point. Love, he understood, was more powerful than memory. Even if she forgot his name tomorrow, the bond they shared could exist without it. 6. Dreams and memories. Naruto began to dream of her more vividly. Not in the hallucination sense, but in dreams so real that waking felt like a betrayal. He would walk through fields of red tulips, her voice echoing across the horizon. "Don't forget to eat, Naruto. Be careful on the rooftops, my little hero." He reached for her in his dreams, and she always reached back. The feeling lingered long after he woke, a warmth in his chest that reminded him why he could endure so much. Some nights he imagined them sitting together in the old kitchen, sharing miso soup, laughing over burned rice. These dreams carried him through the darker hours, when loneliness threatened to swallow him whole. 7. Moments of fragile hope. As months passed, Naruto learned to celebrate the small victories. When she recognized him in the morning without prompting, he clutched his hands together, almost unable to speak. When she laughed genuinely, he felt as if the weight of the world had lifted for a fleeting moment. Each fragment of recognition was a seed, and Naruto nurtured these seeds with stories, gifts, and the patience of someone who had lived through years of solitude and rejection. He realized slowly that the real challenge wasn't forcing her memory to return, but staying present and resilient, being a living bridge between the mother she once was and the woman she could still become. 8. Acceptance and persistence. Naruto's psychological growth became apparent. Though he still felt guilt, loneliness, and fear, he learned to channel them into something constructive. Every day, he repeated small mantras. I am her son. I am here. I will not let her fade entirely. The hospital staff noticed the difference. Tsunade, in particular, remarked on his patience and quiet determination. You're remarkable, she told him one afternoon. Most children would have broken under this weight. You're learning how to bear it, and that's more powerful than any technique I could teach you. Naruto nodded quietly. He didn't feel proud. He just felt committed. A silent oath that no matter how fractured the world became, he would remain a constant for his mother. 9. Quiet moments of connection. Even in silence, moments of connection began to blossom. He would sit by her side in the garden, reading aloud from books she used to enjoy. Sometimes she would follow along, whispering the words with him. Sometimes she would hum a tune from their favorite songs. Even without full recognition, these small shared experiences built trust and familiarity again. Naruto began to understand that love wasn't always dramatic or loud, it could exist in the quiet, in the repetition, in shared air and sunlight. 10. The journey ahead. Naruto knew this path would not end quickly. He had no illusions about the long road ahead. Yet, for the first time in months, he felt a flicker of something stronger than despair. He wasn't just a boy carrying pain, he was a son carrying hope, fragile though it may be. He would not abandon her. He would not give up. And even when the days were long, when the nights stretched empty, and when her mind seemed to forget him entirely, he whispered into the quiet. I will remember enough for both of us, Mom. Always. And in that whisper, he felt her presence, not fully, not clearly, but enough. Enough to keep walking, enough to keep loving, enough to survive the silence. The sun rose slowly, stretching its pale light across the village of Konoha. Naruto sat on the steps of the hospital, his hands wrapped around his knees. The chill of the morning bit at his fingers, but he barely noticed. His thoughts were heavier than the cold, and each breath felt measured, deliberate, as if he were trying to hold himself together from the inside out. Inside the hospital, Kushina stirred, as she did every morning, but not yet fully awake. She lay beneath the soft white sheets, her red hair spread like fire around her pillow. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, and she glimpsed the ceiling with no recognition. The faintest crease of a frown appeared, a shadow of confusion crossing her face, and then her gaze slid elsewhere, lost again. Naruto rose slowly, brushing off his pants. He carried a small folded paper crane in his palm, a simple offering, yet one that held the weight of months of care. His hand shook as he pushed open the door, the quiet creak echoing in the otherwise still corridor. Good morning, Mom, he whispered softly. I made something for you today. She turned slightly, her eyes unseeing for a long moment, until something flickered, tiny, like the whisper of a candle in the wind. Something, for me. Her voice was hoarse and unsure. Yes. He held the crane out to her, placing it gently on her bedside table. It's a red one. I thought you might like it. Kushina's fingers hovered above it, hesitant. She traced the edge of the paper lightly, almost as if testing whether it was real. Then, slowly, she picked it up. Naruto felt his chest tighten. Recognition, even if only partial, was like the first fragile ray of sunlight after a long winter. 1. Repetition and rituals. The next weeks followed a careful rhythm. Each morning, Naruto arrived before dawn. He would bring something, a paper flower, a hand-drawn picture, a story about his day, whatever he thought might reach her through the fog of her memory. He learned that consistency mattered more than brilliance. It wasn't enough to bring something new each day, she needed the familiarity, the ritual. Every morning became a delicate dance, a choreography of love that required patience, restraint, and endurance. Some days, she would remember his name without prompting. Other days, she would look at him with blank eyes, her lips moving as if searching for words she could not find. He never gave up. Not once. 2. The weight of invisible time. Even when Kushina did not respond, Naruto's presence became her anchor. He sat silently by her side, reading aloud or simply keeping her company. The subtle hum of his voice, the soft turning of pages, the occasional whispered word of encouragement, all became reeds weaving through her fractured mind. The nights were hardest. Alone in his room, Naruto would lie on his futon and stare at the ceiling. The silence pressed against him like a living thing, and memories of her flickered through his mind, her laughter, her scolding, the warmth of her embrace. He sometimes imagined what it would be like if she remembered fully, if her laughter returned to him like a river long dammed, if her touch felt solid and alive, if her eyes held him as they once had. Then reality intruded. She did not. She could not. And the ache in his chest reminded him that hope and despair often lived side by side. 3. Echoes of the past. Naruto began to leave little reminders around her room. A pressed flower from the garden. A note tucked under her pillow. A sketch of the two of them sitting together under the sun. Sometimes, he swore he heard her voice in return, not words, but the warmth, the rhythm, the echo of recognition. He knew it was fragile, possibly imagined. But he allowed himself to believe, because in that belief, he found strength. Even the hospital staff noticed. Tsunade would smile quietly when she passed by, watching him carefully. "He's remarkable," she murmured once. "Most children would crumble under this. But Naruto, he's patient. He endures." Naruto smiled faintly. "I have to," he whispered. "She's my mom. I can't stop." 4. Moments of connection. One morning, Kushina spoke clearly, though softly. "Naruto, is that really you?" He froze. His heart pounded. "Yes, Mom, it's me." She reached out her hand, trembling slightly, and touched his cheek. It was the softest brush, but it carried the weight of the world. "You've grown, so much," she said, her voice breaking. "Just like your father." Naruto swallowed hard, holding back tears. He wanted to tell her how much he had missed her, how every day without her recognition had felt like living underwater, drowning in silence. But he held back. He simply squeezed her hand and said, "I've been trying to be strong, like you taught me." The small victories became the lifeblood of his days. Each fleeting moment of recognition was enough to push him forward through the darkness. 5. The struggle within. Despite the progress, the nights were always a return to inner turmoil. Naruto would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, and question himself. Was he enough? Had he done enough? Was he the reason she had suffered? These thoughts were relentless, gnawing at his mind even as he tried to hold on to hope. He could feel the weight of guilt, the pressure of responsibility, the ache of watching someone you love slip away, even when she was physically present. He began writing in secret journals, recording his fears, his memories, his thoughts. Pages upon pages of words poured out of him. Each entry became a bridge, a place where his emotions could exist without destroying him. 6. Dreams of reunion. Naruto's dreams began to shift. He no longer only dreamed of her absence or her broken gaze. Now, he dreamt of the shared moments, laughter in the kitchen, walks through the village, evenings under the stars. In the dreams, she smiled at him fully, her eyes alive and warm. He would reach for her, and she would reach back. The dreams lingered long after waking, leaving him with the bittersweet ache of longing and the strength to endure another day. 7. Small signs. Over time, Naruto began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. The way she hummed a tune she hadn't sung in months. The flicker of recognition when he told a familiar story. The faint smile when she caught sight of a paper flower he had left by her bedside. These signs were tiny, fragile, and easily lost. But they mattered more than anything else. He learned patience, endurance, and humility. He learned that love did not demand recognition to be valid. 8. Acceptance of the long road. Naruto understood that full recovery might never come. That one day, she might forget him again. But he accepted it. He no longer sought only recognition. He sought connection. Even if it was fleeting, even if it was incomplete, it was real. Every day he returned to her side, offered his presence, and nurtured the moments of clarity. Each day, he whispered softly, "I will be here. I will always be here." And somewhere in that quiet, Kushina began to hear him, just enough to remember the warmth of a son's love. 9. Holding on. Months turned into seasons. The leaves changed, fell, and returned. Naruto remained steadfast. His sleep was still fragmented. His heart still ached. His mind still carried the weight of guilt and worry. But he held on to the fragments of hope. He learned that love and memory did not need to be perfect. They only needed to persist. Every whisper, every touch, every shared silence became a thread binding mother and son together. And as the sun rose over Konoha, Naruto made a quiet promise to himself. No matter how long it takes, no matter how small the victories, I will not give up on her. I will carry enough memory for both of us. For in that commitment, he found his own strength, a resilience born of love, patience, and the quiet endurance of a boy who refused to let go. The wind carried a subtle chill through Konoha that morning, brushing against the red leaves of the trees lining the streets. Naruto moved quietly through the village, the familiar sounds of life around him muted as if his mind filtered out everything but the weight in his chest. Every step toward the hospital felt like walking through a fog he could not shake, yet he moved forward because he had learned that staying away accomplished nothing. Inside the hospital, Kushina sat in her chair by the window, gazing at the garden outside. The sunlight touched her hair, illuminating its fiery red, but her eyes remained distant, unfocused. She held a small cup of tea, her fingers trembling slightly around it. Naruto entered without a sound, a folded paper crane in his hand. The crane's red wings were delicate, a small offering of his persistent love. "Good morning, Mom," he said softly. "I made this for you." She turned slowly, her eyes meeting his. For a brief moment, recognition flickered. The faintest smile played across her lips, and her hand hovered over the table. It's beautiful," she whispered. "Did you make this for me?" "Yes," Naruto replied, kneeling beside her chair. "I thought you might like it." Quote, her fingers closed around the crane gently, and Naruto's chest tightened. Even if the moment was fleeting, it was a spark, a fragile, precious spark that reminded him why he endured the silence, the loneliness, and the constant ache in his heart. 1. Rituals of care. The days continued in a careful rhythm. Naruto's mornings began before the sun, each visit a small act of devotion. He would bring folded paper flowers, small drawings, or scraps of origami, anything to stir even the faintest memory. He would tell stories softly, recounting the days of his childhood, the times they had laughed, scolded, or shared a quiet meal together. Sometimes she responded. Sometimes she looked through him, blank and lost. Yet he never gave up. Each small gesture, each repeated story, became part of a silent ritual, a language of love and memory that needed no recognition to be real. He learned to cherish the fleeting moments of clarity, the soft humming of a song she remembered, the way her hand brushed against his without hesitation, or a smile that lasted just a breath longer than the day before. 2. Nights of reflection. When the hospital grew quiet and the moon cast silver light through his small room, Naruto lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The weight of months pressed against his chest, a mixture of hope and despair. He would remember the way her laughter had once filled the house, the warmth of her hugs, and the softness of her voice. Each memory carried both joy and pain, the reminder of what was lost and what could be reclaimed. Sometimes he whispered to himself, "I will make you remember, Mom. Even if it takes forever." Other times, the silence answered with the cruel truth, she might never fully remember. Yet even in those moments, he clung to the smallest threads of hope, because it was all that kept him moving forward. 3. Fragments of recognition. One afternoon, as he guided Kushina to the hospital garden, a subtle change occurred. She stopped suddenly, staring at a patch of red flowers by the pathway. Her hand reached out, brushing a petal lightly, and her lips parted in recognition. "These red flowers," she murmured. They remind me." Naruto's heart raced. He didn't interrupt. He simply stood by her side, letting her memories surface in her own time. "They remind me of someone I used to know," she continued softly. "Someone who cared for me deeply." Naruto swallowed, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. He let her words hang in the air, precious and delicate, fragile as glass. 4. Conversations in silence. Naruto began speaking to her in longer sentences, recounting memories in detail. He spoke of the nights they had stayed up talking, the quiet walks through Konoha's streets, the times she had scolded him for being reckless, and the stories of his father's bravery. Sometimes, she would respond. Sometimes she would hum quietly. Sometimes her lips would move as if speaking but no sound emerged. Naruto realized that it was enough. Connection did not require clarity. It did not require full recognition. Even when her mind slipped away, the act of speaking, of being present, was a bridge between them. 5. The weight of guilt. Even as progress appeared, guilt remained a constant companion. Was this my fault? He wondered. Could she have been whole if I hadn't existed? These thoughts gnawed at him. In quiet moments, he imagined walking away, removing himself from her life entirely. And yet, even the thought of abandoning her filled him with unbearable sorrow. He wrote down his thoughts in secret journals, pouring guilt, fear, hope, and love into the pages. Each word was a lifeline, a way to endure the days when reality was too heavy. 6. Dreams of reconnection. Naruto's dreams became a refuge. In them, he saw Kushina whole, her eyes alive and warm, her laughter filling the air. He would reach for her, and she would reach back, guiding him through fields of red tulips, under skies brushed with sunset. He woke each morning with a bittersweet ache, the echo of joy mingled with the reality of her fractured memory. Yet these dreams strengthened him, reminding him why he could endure the pain and the silence. 7. Tiny victories. Small victories became his sustenance. A morning when she recognized his name without prompting. A fleeting smile. A gentle touch. A hum of a song she had loved. Naruto learned patience, endurance, and humility. He learned that love could exist even when recognition faltered. It could survive in silence, in routine, in the smallest gestures of care. 8. The long road. Naruto accepted that full recovery might never come. That one day, she might forget him again. But he also understood that love did not demand perfection. It demanded presence, dedication, the quiet persistence to remain even when hope seemed fragile. Every day, he returned to her side, nurturing the moments of clarity. Every whispered word, every gentle touch, every shared silence became a thread weaving their fractured lives together. 9. Building hope. Seasons shifted, leaves fell and returned. The garden outside Kushina's window changed with time, yet Naruto remained a constant presence. He began noticing patterns, gestures that hinted at recognition, subtle expressions of familiarity, quiet movements that betrayed a memory rising from the depths. He learned to celebrate these signs, no matter how small. Each one was a victory, proof that love could reach her across the void of lost memory. 10. A quiet resolve. Naruto's resolve solidified. He no longer measured himself by progress alone. He measured by effort, by devotion, by the unyielding desire to remain her son even when she could not LLYC him. I will remember enough for both of us, he whispered each night, pressing his hands together. Always, even when the days were long, when her mind slipped, when silence threatened to engulf him, he held on to this truth. For in that promise, he found strength. A quiet, unshakable strength born of love, patience, and the enduring bond between mother and son. And somewhere, in the faint warmth of the sunlight falling across her hair, he sensed her presence, not full, not complete, but enough to remind him why he endured. Why he persisted, why he loved with every fiber of his being. The first light of dawn seeped through the thin curtains of Kushina's hospital room, casting a muted glow over the soft hum of life waking outside. Naruto had been sitting silently in the corner, hands folded over his knees, watching the faint rise and fall of his mother's chest. She slept quietly now, though her sleep was shallow, often interrupted by murmurs and sudden movements that reflected the turmoil in her mind. Naruto, however, had learned patience. He had learned to endure nights filled with unrelenting worry, to navigate the silent corridors of fear, hope, and guilt that wove themselves through his every thought. This morning, like every morning, he had prepared small gestures to reach her, folded origami, carefully drawn pictures of scenes from their past, and stories recounted in gentle tones. He rose softly, the floor creaking under his weight. The faintest sound of his steps seemed amplified in the room's quiet, yet it did not startle her. She remained half asleep, a hand resting near her face, a strand of fiery hair falling across her cheek. "Good morning, Mom," Naruto whispered, extending a delicate paper flower, its petals carefully colored red, her favorite. "I brought this for you." Her eyes opened slowly, unseeing at first, but then a flicker of recognition passed through them. The faintest curve of a smile formed on her lips, as though memory was reaching out for a brief moment. It's beautiful," she murmured. "Did you make this?" "Yes," Naruto said softly, kneeling beside her chair. "I thought you might like it." Her fingers brushed the paper flower tentatively, then closed around it with care. The small motion, fragile though it was, struck Naruto as a victory in itself, a reminder that love could penetrate even the haze of a broken mind. 1. Morning rituals. The mornings followed a careful, unspoken rhythm. Naruto began each day with small acts of devotion, tea carefully brewed, origami folded with precision, stories told with gentle inflection. Each act was intended to spark recognition, to provide a thread of connection between past and present, between memory and love. Sometimes she responded with clear acknowledgement, naming him, asking simple questions. Other times, she stared into the distance, her mind lost to fragments of the world she once knew. Naruto learned not to despair. Each fleeting moment of clarity, no matter how brief, was a reminder that persistence mattered more than results. Even when she did not respond, he remained beside her, reading aloud or recounting stories in quiet tones. He learned that presence alone could communicate more than words ever could. 2. Nights of reflection. When the hospital quieted and the moonlight spilled across his small room, Naruto would lie awake on his futon, staring at the ceiling. The loneliness pressed against him, heavy and unrelenting, and thoughts of guilt crept in like shadows. Could I have done something differently? Am I the reason she suffers? He grappled with these thoughts nightly, a conversation between hope and despair, love and fear. The silence of the night allowed him to explore the depths of his emotions, to confront his failures, his anxieties, and the raw arc of seeing someone he loved lost in her own mind. He began to write them down in a small notebook, pouring his heart into pages filled with sketches, memories, and unspoken words. This ritual became a lifeline, a means of processing the intense mixture of love, guilt, and fear that constantly surrounded him. 3. Glimpses of recognition. One afternoon, Kushina paused in the garden as a red tulip swayed in the breeze. Her hand reached out toward the flower, fingers brushing lightly against its petals. "These red flowers," she murmured softly, her voice trembling. They remind me." Naruto did not interrupt. He simply remained beside her, giving her the space to reach through the fog of her mind. "They remind me of someone I used to know," she continued. "Someone who cared for me deeply." Naruto's chest tightened, and he felt a tear escape down his cheek. Recognition, even partial, was a spark of hope, a thread that bound them together in a fragile but real way. 4. Conversations and stories. Naruto began recounting their shared past more intentionally. He spoke of long nights in the old kitchen, of walks through the village, of playful scoldings, and of laughter that once filled the air. Sometimes she would hum along, sometimes she would repeat words after him, sometimes she would simply listen. Each small response mattered, each fragment of memory a building block in the delicate bridge he was constructing between them. He realized that the act of connection itself, rather than any perfect recollection, was what mattered most. Love could exist even when memory faltered. 5. The burden of guilt. Despite the progress, guilt remained a constant companion. Naruto often wondered whether his very existence had contributed to her suffering. Was this my fault? Could she have remained whole if I hadn't been born? These questions haunted him, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. Yet, abandoning her was not an option. The thought alone was unbearable. He poured these emotions into his journal, words, sketches, and thoughts, capturing everything he could not speak aloud. The notebook became a mirror of his inner world, a silent confidant that allowed him to release the weight he carried. 6. Dreams of the past. Naruto's dreams began to shift subtly. In them, Kushina's eyes were alive again, her laughter full, and her presence warm and reassuring. He walked with her through familiar streets, fields of tulips, and quiet rooms of their old home. He awoke with a lingering ache, joy mingled with sorrow, but these dreams fortified him. They reminded him why he endured the long hours, the quiet, the loneliness. Each dream was a promise of what could be, a shadow of what might return. 7. Small victories. Even the tiniest victories became monumental. A day when she called his name without prompting. A fleeting smile, a gentle touch, or the soft hum of a song she remembered. Naruto began to measure progress not in dramatic breakthroughs, but in small, almost imperceptible CGNS. Each moment of recognition, however brief, was proof that love could reach across the veil of memory loss. 8. Acceptance and persistence. Naruto came to accept the reality of her condition. Full recovery might never come. Memory might remain fragmented forever. But he no longer measured success by recognition alone. Presence, persistence, patience, these were the victories he could achieve. He remained by her side, offering his attention, voice, and warmth. Every whispered word, every careful gesture, every moment of shared silence was a thread tying them together, reinforcing the bond between mother and son. 9. Signs of life. Gradually, Naruto noticed more subtle indicators that his mother's memory was stirring. A smile that lingered longer. A curious glance at a familiar object. A humming tune that once meant something to her. He learned to treasure these signs, no matter how fleeting. Each one was proof that love, patience, and devotion could pierce even the haze of a fractured mind. 10. A quiet resolve. Through months of careful attention, Naruto's resolve solidified. He understood that love did not demand perfection, nor did it require full recognition. What mattered was constancy, care, and commitment. I will remember enough for both of us, he whispered nightly, pressing his hands together. Always. Even as the days grew long, as her mind slipped again, and as the silence pressed in, he clung to this truth. In it, he found strength, resilience, and a reason to endure. And somewhere in the quiet, in the warmth of the sunlight touching her hair, he felt her presence, not fully, not clearly, but enough. Enough to remind him why he persisted, why he loved, why he held on with every ounce of his being. The mornings had begun to feel like a delicate dance. Each step Naruto took into the hospital room carried weight, a mixture of hope, fear, and devotion. Kushina often sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the garden. Sometimes her gaze would focus on the distant horizon, at the trees, the sky, or the fluttering leaves. And sometimes, just sometimes, her eyes would land on him. "Mom," he whispered softly, kneeling beside her chair, "look what I made today." He held out a small origami fox, its red-orange wings delicately folded. It was not perfect, but it carried his love, patience, and persistence, crafted carefully through the night. Kushina's fingers trembled as she reached toward it. Her lips moved, attempting words, yet only a whisper emerged. "A fox, Naruto." Her voice was fragile, uncertain, yet it carried a warmth that had been missing for months. Naruto's chest tightened, and he struggled to contain the wave of emotion rising in him. "Yes, Mom," he said gently. "It's for you. I thought you might like it." She touched the paper with care, cradling it as if holding something alive. For a fleeting moment, her gaze met his fully. The recognition, though partial, was a spark in the darkness, a fragile thread connecting them once more. E. 1. Daily rituals. Days blurred into one another, yet Naruto clung to the structure he had built. Each morning, he arrived early. Each afternoon, he guided Kushina to the garden. Each evening, he returned to his small room to write in his journals, recording memories, emotions, thoughts, and stories of the day. Every detail mattered, the fold of the paper, the choice of color, the cadence of his voice. Even when she did not respond, the acts themselves created continuity, presence, and subtle connection. Sometimes she hummed, sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she merely breathed with him in the quiet moments. Each gesture was a victory, each spark of recognition a reminder that love could reach even the foggiest of minds. 2. The weight of guilt. Even with these fragile victories, guilt persisted. Was this my fault? Could I have done something differently? These thoughts gnawed at him, haunting the quiet nights. He questioned himself endlessly, wondering if his very existence had contributed to her suffering. In the darkest moments, he imagined leaving, disappearing entirely, freeing her from the burden of his presence. Yet the thought of abandoning her was unbearable. He could not leave her alone. He could not give up. The weight of love was heavier than the weight of fear. He poured these conflicting emotions into his journals, filling pages with sketches, thoughts, and memories. The notebook became a sanctuary, a safe space to confront his fears without letting them consume him. 3. Dreams of connection. Naruto's dreams began to carry more clarity. In them, Kushina's eyes were alive, her laughter ringing through familiar spaces. He walked with her through fields of red tulips, along quiet village streets, and in rooms filled with soft sunlight. He reached for her in dreams, and she reached back. Each dream left him with a lingering ache, a bittersweet reminder of what had been lost and what could perhaps be regained. Yet these dreams strengthened him. They reminded him why he endured each day, why he persisted, why he whispered stories and folded origami with love and care. 4. Tiny victories. Small gestures became monumental. A day when she remembered his name without prompting. A smile that lasted longer than before. A gentle touch. A quiet hum of a song from her past. Naruto began to treasure these moments, recognizing them as signs that memory, while fragile, could still be coaxed back. He understood that progress was not measured in leaps, but in inches, in fleeting sparks of recognition, in the quiet persistence of presence. 5. Presence over perfection. He came to accept that full recovery might never come. Memory could remain fragmented indefinitely. But he no longer measured love by recognition alone. He stayed by her side, offering warmth, attention, and patience. Every whispered word, every careful gesture, every moment of shared silence became a thread that held their bond together. He discovered that love itself could bridge the gaps left by memory, that persistence and devotion were more important than perfection. 6. Signs of life. Over weeks, he noticed subtle signs that her mind was stirring. A lingering smile, a glance that followed him as he moved across the room, a faint hum of a familiar song. He learned to celebrate these small signs, fragile as they were. Each one represented hope, a tiny victory against the darkness that had settled in her mind. Each spark reminded him that love could endure, even when the mind faltered. 7. Quiet resolve. Naruto's resolve grew stronger. He understood that love did not demand full recognition. It demanded presence, care, and unwavering commitment. I will remember enough for both of us, he whispered each night, pressing his hands together in quiet prayer. Always, even as her mind slipped occasionally, as silence pressed in, and as moments of recognition faded, he clung to this truth. It gave him strength, resilience, and a reason to endure. Somewhere in the quiet, in the sunlight touching her hair, he felt her presence, not fully, not completely, but enough to remind him why he persisted, why he loved, why he held on with every fiber of his being. 8. Subtle shifts. Gradually, he began to notice more subtle shifts in her behavior. A glance that lingered a second longer than before, a smile at a familiar story, a soft touch to his hand. He celebrated these moments quietly, knowing that each one was a step forward. Even if they were fleeting, they were real. He began to understand that healing was not a single moment, but a series of moments strung together over time. It was patience, persistence, and the quiet act of showing up every day. 9. Emotional growth. Naruto's emotional growth became apparent. He no longer relied on dramatic breakthroughs or sudden recognition. He learned to find joy in subtle gestures and to accept that love could exist even when understanding did not. The quiet, gentle rhythm of daily life, the morning rituals, garden walks, stories, and shared silence, became the foundation for rebuilding their bond. He learned that patience was not passive. It was active. It was choosing to remain present, to care, and to love without expectation. 10. A fragile but steady bond. Seasons shifted. Leaves turned, fell, and returned. The garden outside Kushina's window changed with time, but Naruto remained constant. Every small act of recognition, every fleeting smile, every gentle touch became a thread weaving a fragile but steady bond. And as the sun rose over Konoha, Naruto whispered into the quiet. "I will remember enough for both of us, Mom. Always." In that quiet resolve, he found his strength, his purpose, and his reason to endure the long, uncertain journey ahead. The sun had barely risen when Naruto quietly left his small room, carrying a bag filled with carefully prepared items. A folded paper crane, a sketch of him and Kushina walking in the village, a small bowl of freshly made miso soup. It was a collection of tiny gestures, each one intended to remind her, to connect her to him, to the love that never wavered despite the haze clouding her mind. The streets of Konoha were quiet in the early morning. The faint cries of birds punctuated the stillness, and the soft rustling of leaves in the wind accompanied his slow, measured steps. Naruto's heart was heavy, yet it beat with the determination of someone who had survived years of loneliness, neglect, and pain. He had endured countless hardships, but none so agonizing as seeing his mother trapped inside a mind that could not fully recognize him. When he entered the hospital room, Kushina was already awake. She sat by the window, staring out at the garden, her red hair glowing faintly in the early light. There was a blanket draped around her shoulders, but it did little to warm the chill in the room, the chill of her fragmented mind. She turned her head slightly as he approached, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment, but then slipping away as if the recognition had been only a shadow. "Good morning, Mom," Naruto whispered softly, kneeling beside her chair. "I brought something for you today." He placed a delicate paper crane on the table. Its wings were carefully folded, colored with shades of red and orange reminiscent of her hair. He had made it with trembling hands the night before, pouring his love, hope, and patience into every crease. Kushina's fingers hovered over the crane. Her lips parted slightly, forming words that barely emerged. "A crane, for me." "Yes, Mom," Naruto said gently, his voice barely above a whisper. "I made it for you. I thought you might like it." Her fingers closed around the paper delicately. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough. It was enough to remind Naruto why he endured the long nights of worry, the quiet hours of despair, the relentless weight of guilt that followed him like a shadow. 1. The weight of routine. Every day followed a ritual, carefully constructed to bridge the gap between memory and love. Naruto would arrive before dawn, bringing items designed to spark recognition. A simple origami figure, a small sketch, a piece of fruit she once enjoyed, or a story from the past, each element was intended to awaken her mind. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes she responded with clear words or gestures, and sometimes she remained lost, staring into the distance with unseeing eyes. Naruto learned that it was enough to be present, even when recognition failed. He spoke softly, recounting their past in vivid detail, the nights they had spent talking, the laughter that had once filled their home, the small scoldings that had shaped him, the warmth of her embrace. His words were not always met with understanding, but the act of telling them created a bridge, one that, over time, strengthened. 2. The weight of guilt. Despite these small victories, guilt never left him. Was this my fault? Could she have been whole if I hadn't existed? These questions gnawed at him, often coming in waves during the quiet nights. He sometimes imagined leaving, disappearing entirely, thinking that maybe her mind would be lighter without him. but the thought of abandoning her was unbearable. He poured these thoughts into journals, sketching memories and writing stories of their past, pouring his heart onto pages that became silent witnesses to his struggle. Each entry was both a release and a reaffirmation. He would endure, he would persist, he would remain. 3. Dreams as refuge. Naruto's dreams became a sanctuary. In them, Kushina's mind was whole. Her laughter filled spaces that had been silent for months. He walked with her through fields of red tulips, along streets of Konoha they had once wandered together, and through the rooms of their old home. He reached for her in his dreams, and she reached back. Each dream left him with a bittersweet ache, a mixture of joy and sorrow, but it also renewed his resolve. He would face another day, another moment of fragmented recognition, because the memory of her fully alive remained vivid in his heart. 4. Tiny victories and flickers of memory. Small moments of recognition became monumental. The day she remembered his name without prompting, the day she smiled at a memory he recounted, the day she touched his hand or hummed a familiar tune, each became a lifeline. Naruto cherished these moments as proof that memory, while fragile, could be coaxed back. He learned to measure progress not by grand gestures or dramatic breakthroughs, but by these flickers, tiny sparks of connection that reminded him that love could survive even when understanding faltered. 5. Connection without clarity. Naruto began to understand that healing was not about restoring memory perfectly. Healing was about presence, patience, and consistent love. Even when Kushina did not recognize him fully, even when her gaze slipped away, he continued to speak, to hold her hand, to fold origami, to recount stories. Each small act was a thread weaving them together, a quiet bond that did not require clarity to exist. He learned to take joy in the smallest signs, a lingering glance, a faint smile, a curious touch. Each was a victory in its own right, a reminder that love could endure even when memory failed. 6. Psychological struggles. Even as the bond strengthened, Naruto's mind was a battlefield. Guilt, fear, hope, and love warred within him. Am I enough? Am I doing enough? Will she ever truly remember me? These thoughts haunted him, especially in the nights when the hospital was silent and the weight of responsibility pressed down. Yet he did not succumb. He understood that endurance itself was a form of love, that showing up every day, caring even when hope seemed fragile, was an act of courage. He also began to reflect on his own resilience. The pain of his childhood, the loneliness, the constant need for recognition, these had forged him into someone capable of this unwavering devotion. He realized that his past suffering had prepared him for this challenge, and that strength was now being applied in its purest form, to care for someone he loved, despite the impossibility of perfect outcomes. 7. Signs of life. Over time, Kushina's mind showed subtle signs of stirring. She would follow his movements with her eyes, hum a tune from her past, or respond to stories with fragments of recognition. Naruto celebrated these signs quietly, knowing that each was a step forward. Even if they were fleeting, they were tangible, proof that connection could survive the haze of a fractured mind. Each moment was a small victory, and he began to notice patterns, triggers that evoked recognition, objects are phrases that brought her back to him for even a few seconds. He began cataloging these triggers, using them to nurture the fragile bond further. 8. Emotional growth and patience. Through months of ritual and persistence, Naruto's emotional growth became evident. He no longer relied on moments of dramatic clarity. He found joy in subtle gestures, in shared silence, in the act of showing up every day. Patience became a conscious practice. Endurance became his mantra. Love, he realized, did not demand perfection, it demanded constancy, resilience, and the willingness to persist even when hope seemed dim. Each day he returned to Kushina's side, he reinforced this understanding, shaping a quiet, enduring rhythm of connection that required neither recognition nor Mori to be meaningful. 9. Mother and son bond. Seasons passed, leaves fell, snow melted, and the garden outside the window changed. Yet Naruto remained constant. Every small smile, every lingering glance, every gentle touch became part of a fragile but unbreakable bond. The threads woven through months of patience and devotion held firm, reinforcing their connection even in the absence of full memory. Naruto whispered nightly, pressing his hands together. "I will remember enough for both of us, Mom. Always." This quiet promise became the foundation of his strength. It reminded him why he endured long days, why he braved the loneliness of nights, why he continued to show up, fold origami, recite stories, and speak softly to her. 10. A fragile future. Naruto knew the road ahead would be long and uncertain. Full recognition might never come. Memory might remain fragmented. Yet he accepted it. He understood that love's power was not measured by the mind's clarity, but by the constancy of heart. He had become the anchor in Kushina's storm, the steady presence that reminded her, even fleetingly, that she was loved, remembered, and never alone. In the quiet of the hospital room, as the sunlight touched her hair and the garden outside swayed in the gentle wind, Naruto felt her presence, not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to endure, enough to hope, enough to love, and in that presence, he found the strength to continue, to persist, to remain the son who would not abandon his mother, no matter how broken the world became around them. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the hospital blinds, painting Kushina's room in muted gold. Naruto had already prepared her breakfast, arranged a few small paper cranes on the table, and placed a sketch of them together under the cherry blossom tree outside their old home. Each gesture was small, but deliberate, crafted with patience and a quiet hope that one of these tiny threads might reconnect her with him, with the shared past. Kushina sat in her chair, wrapped in a soft blanket, her gaze distant. Her mind still drifted in fragments of memory, slipping in and out of awareness like the tide. She turned her head slightly as Naruto entered, eyes lingering on him for just a moment before sliding away. "Good morning, Mom," Naruto said softly, kneeling beside her chair. "I have something for you today." He placed a delicate red origami fox on the table. Its wings were carefully folded, its form imperfect but imbued with love. Kushina's hand hovered over the paper. Her lips parted, whispering, "Fox." "Yes, Mom," Naruto replied, voice gentle. "I made it for you. I thought you might like it." Her fingers closed lightly around the paper, and she looked at him for a fleeting moment. That brief spark of recognition, however fragile, filled Naruto with a quiet, almost unbearable relief. 1. The ritual of presence. Days became a series of carefully orchestrated rituals. Naruto arrived early each morning, carrying his small offerings of love, paper cranes, sketches, small gifts, or stories of the past. Each item, each word, was a thread meant to tether Kushina to the present, to him, to their shared history. Sometimes she responded with clarity, a name, a question, a soft smile. Sometimes she drifted in silence, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon, lost in the fog of memory. Yet Naruto did not despair. Each day he remained, each word he spoke, each hand he held became part of the invisible scaffolding of their bond. He recounted stories of their past, simple, vivid, and heartfelt, evenings spent talking under the warm glow of lamplight, walks through Konoha, small scoldings, and laughter that had once filled their home. Even when she did not respond, the act of speaking created connection, as though the words themselves were a bridge across the void. 2. The ever-present guilt. Yet the weight of guilt was a constant shadow. Is this my fault? Could I have done something to prevent this? These thoughts gnawed at him relentlessly. He imagined scenarios where his existence somehow caused her suffering. In moments of weakness, he even considered walking away, thinking perhaps it would ease her pain. But the thought of abandoning her was unbearable. Instead, he poured his heart into journals, sketching, writing, and recording memories. Each entry became a lifeline, a way to confront the dark weight of responsibility and love. The act of writing reminded him that persistence, patience, and devotion were as vital as recognition itself. 3. Dreams as refuge and guidance. Naruto's dreams became vivid and sacred spaces. In them, Kushina's mind was whole, her laughter full, her eyes alive with warmth. He walked with her through fields of tulips, streets of Konoha, and rooms of their old home, free from the fog that haunted the waking world. He reached for her, and she reached back. Each dream left him with a bittersweet ache. The joy of connection mingled with the sorrow of knowing the waking reality remained fractured. Yet these dreams fortified him, renewing his determination to endure each day, to continue his rituals, and to maintain hope in the small sparks of recognition that punctuated reality. 4. Fleeting moments of memory. Tiny victories became his sustenance. The day she remembered his name without prompting. The day she smiled at a story he told. The day she hummed a fragment of a familiar song. Naruto learned to measure progress not in leaps, but in these fleeting moments, small sparks of recognition that proved memory, even fractured, could be coaxed back. Each flicker of memory became an affirmation that love could survive, even when the mind faltered. He learned to embrace patience, understanding that every subtle acknowledgement was a step forward. 5. Connection beyond recognition. Naruto understood that healing was not about perfect restoration of memory. It was about presence, persistence, and unwavering care. Even when Kushina could not recognize him, he spoke, held her hand, folded origami, and recounted stories. Each act was a thread weaving them together, a quiet bond that did not require full clarity. He took joy in subtle signs, lingering glances, faint smiles, and light touches. Each was proof that love endured, even in the absence of complete understanding. 6. The psychological burden. Despite the small victories, the psychological burden remained immense. Guilt, fear, hope, and love warred in his mind. Am I doing enough? Will she ever truly remember me? These thoughts pressed down in the quiet hours, gnawing at him with relentless insistence. Yet Naruto did not succumb. He understood that endurance itself was an act of love, showing up, persisting, and offering care without expectation. He reflected on his past, the years of loneliness, neglect, and longing for recognition, which had forged his resilience. That strength was now dedicated entirely to nurturing his mother, anchoring her through the storm of her fractured mind. 7. Subtle signs of life. Over time, subtle shifts emerged. Kushina would follow his movements with her eyes, hum faint tunes, or respond with fragments of recognition. Naruto celebrated each sign quietly, understanding that each one was progress, however fragile. Even fleeting acknowledgement was proof that connection could endure the haze of memory loss. He began noting patterns, objects, phrases, or gestures that triggered recognition. He carefully used these to create small, recurring moments of clarity, reinforcing their bond. 8. Emotional maturity and patience. Through months of careful devotion, Naruto's emotional maturity grew. He no longer waited for dramatic breakthroughs. He found joy in subtle gestures, shared silences, and the act of consistent presence. Patience became a practiced discipline. Endurance became his mantra. Love, he realized, demanded neither perfection nor certainty, it demanded constancy, persistence, and courage in the face of uncertainty. Daily, he nurtured their fragile rhythm of connection, understanding that even the smallest acknowledgement was a profound victory. 9. Strengthening the mother-son bond. Seasons shifted, leaves fell and returned. The garden outside the hospital window changed with time. Yet Naruto remained constant. Every smile, every lingering glance, every gentle touch became part of an invisible, yet unbreakable, bond. Months of persistence, small gestures, and unwavering devotion wove a fragile but enduring thread of connection. At night, he whispered softly, pressing his hands together. I will remember enough for both of us, Mom. Always. This promise became the source of his strength. It reminded him why he endured long days, sleepless nights, and the constant weight of guilt. It reminded him why he persisted in showing up, in folding origami, in speaking softly, in living with unwavering devotion. 10. A fragile but hopeful future. Naruto understood that the road ahead would be long, uncertain, and possibly never fully rewarding. Kushina might never regain complete memory. The fragments might always flicker in and out of reach. Yet he accepted this truth with grace. He realized love's power lay not in the mind's clarity, but in the heart's constancy. He had become her anchor, the presence that tethered her to love, recognition, and safety. In the quiet of the hospital room, as sunlight touched her hair and the garden swayed in the gentle morning breeze, Naruto felt her presence, not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to endure, enough to hope, enough to love, and in that fragile connection, Naruto discovered the deepest truth of his existence: love, patience, and devotion could heal even when the mind faltered, could bridge gaps no memory could span, and could endure beyond the boundaries of fear and despair. He would continue, always. The first light of dawn seeped through the thin curtains, spilling soft warmth onto Kushina's hospital bed. Naruto sat in the corner of the room, his hands wrapped around a small notebook where he had been sketching memories, writing thoughts, and chronicling every fram of recognition he had witnessed. Months had passed since her heart attack, yet every day was a delicate balance between hope and despair, love and guilt, patience and fear. Today, he had prepared a set of small gestures, a handful of freshly folded paper cranes, a sketch of the garden outside the hospital window in full bloom, and a small box of her favorite tea. Each item was placed carefully on a tray, arranged in a way he hoped would spark recognition, connection, and warmth. Kushina sat by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, staring at the garden. Her hair caught the morning light, creating a fiery halo around her head. For a moment, her eyes seemed distant, unfocused, and lost in the haze of fractured memory. Naruto approached slowly, kneeling beside her chair. "Good morning, Mom," he whispered softly, placing the tray before her. "I brought something for you today." Her hand lifted slightly, fingers trembling as they hovered over the tray. A faint whisper escaped her lips. "Tea, for me?" "Yes, Mom," Naruto said gently. "I remembered you liked it this way. I thought it might make your morning a little brighter." Her eyes met his briefly, recognition flickering like a candle struggling against the wind. For a few seconds, Naruto allowed himself to breathe fully, to feel the warmth of that connection, fragile though it was. 1. The daily rituals of care. Every day followed a rhythm carefully constructed by Naruto. He had learned that small, consistent gestures mattered more than dramatic interventions. Each morning began with a simple greeting, followed by small offerings of love, origami, sketches, tea, or small recollections of shared memories. Sometimes Kushina responded with words, sometimes with gestures, sometimes only with a fleeting glance. Each moment, however brief, was a thread in the fragile tapestry of their connection. Naruto learned to value presence over recognition, understanding that even silence could communicate love. He told stories of their past, nights spent talking, walks through Konoha's streets, meals shared together, moments of laughter, and even moments of gentle scolding. Even when she did not respond, the act of speaking created continuity, a bridge across the fog of her fractured mind. 2. The shadow of guilt. Despite these small victories, guilt was a constant companion. Is this my fault? Could I have done something differently? These thoughts gnawed at him relentlessly. He wondered if his very existence had contributed to her suffering. During quiet nights, he even imagined leaving, believing perhaps her mind would be lighter without him. But the thought of abandoning her was unbearable. He poured these fears into his journals, drawing, writing, and sketching. Each entry became a lifeline, a way to confront the dark weight of responsibility and love without succumbing to despair. 3. Dreams as solace and strength. Naruto's dreams became a refuge. In them, Kushina's mind was whole. Her eyes sparkled, her laughter echoed through spaces that had been silent for months. He walked with her through fields of tulips, along familiar village streets, and through rooms of their old home. In these dreams, he reached for her, and she reached back. Each dream left him with a bittersweet ache, a mixture of joy and sorrow, but it renewed his determination to endure the waking hours, to continue his daily rituals, and to nurture even the smallest sparks of recognition. 4. Fleeting moments of memory. Tiny victories became monumental. The day she remembered his name without prompting. The day she smiled at a story he told. The day she hummed a fragment of a familiar tune. Naruto measured progress not by dramatic breakthroughs, but by these fleeting moments, tiny sparks that proved memory could still respond to love, attention, and care. Each flicker became a symbol of hope, a reminder that love could endure even when understanding faltered. He learned to embrace patience, knowing that every subtle acknowledgement was a step forward. 5. Connection beyond recognition. He realized that healing was not about perfect memory. It was about presence, care, and persistence. Even when Kushina did not fully recognize him, he continued to speak, fold origami, and recount stories. Each act wove invisible threads connecting them. He learned to find joy in subtle gestures, a lingering glance, a soft smile, a tentative touch. Each tiny response reinforced the idea that love could endure beyond the limits of memory, that care itself could create bridges across fractured minds. 6. The psychological struggle. Despite small victories, Naruto's mind was a battleground. Guilt, fear, hope, and love fought for dominance. Am I enough? Will she ever truly remember me? These questions pressed on him during the quiet hours, gnawing at his resolve. Yet he understood that endurance itself was an act of love, showing up every day, caring without expectation, persisting despite uncertainty. He reflected on his past, the isolation, the loneliness, the years of craving recognition, and realized that those experiences had forged a resilience now applied to his most sacred duty, being present for his mother. 7. Subtle signs of life. Over weeks, subtle shifts appeared. Kushina would follow his movements with her eyes, hum faint tunes, or respond with fragments of recognition. Naruto celebrated each sign quietly, knowing that even fleeting acknowledgement was a victory. He began cataloging triggers, objects, phrases, or gestures that evoked recognition, and used them to create recurring moments of clarity, reinforcing their fragile bond. 8. Emotional growth and patience. Through months of persistent care, Naruto matured emotionally. He no longer relied on dramatic breakthroughs. He found fulfillment in small gestures, shared silence, and consistent presence. Patience became a practiced discipline, endurance a mantra. Love demanded not perfection, but constancy, persistence, and courage. Each day he nurtured their fragile rhythm, understanding that even the smallest spark of recognition was profound. 9. Strengthening the bond. Seasons shifted, leaves fell and returned. The hospital garden transformed with time. Yet Naruto remained steadfast. Every lingering glance, soft touch, and smile became a thread in the unbreakable bond he wove through months of devotion. At night, he whispered softly, "I will remember enough for both of us, Mom. Always." This quiet promise became his strength, a reminder why he endured long days, sleepless nights, and the constant weight of guilt. It reminded him why he persisted, folded origami, spoke softly, and remained present. 10. A fragile, hopeful future. Naruto knew the road ahead was uncertain. Kushina might never fully recover, and memory might remain fragmented. Yet he accepted it. He realized that love's power lay not in clarity of memory, but in constancy of heart. He had become her anchor, the presence tethering her to love, care, and safety. In the quiet of the hospital room, sunlight touching her hair, garden swaying in gentle wind, Naruto felt her presence, not fully, not completely, but enough. Enough to endure, enough to hope, enough to love. In this fragile connection, Naruto discovered that love, patience, and devotion could heal even when the mind faltered, could bridge gaps no memory could span, and could endure beyond fear, despair, or time itself. He would continue, always. The evening sun cast long, golden shadows across Kushina's hospital room. Naruto sat beside her, hands gently holding hers. Kushina's eyes were calm, her breathing steady, and though her mind remained partially clouded, there was a subtle warmth in her gaze, a quiet acknowledgement of the presence that never left her side. Naruto looked at her, his chest heavy with emotions he could barely contain, love, guilt, hope, and relief. Every day had been a battle, every small flicker of recognition a victory, every moment of shared silence a bridge across the foe. Of her mind. He gently brushed a strand of her hair from her face, whispering softly, "I will always be here, Mom. No matter what, I will never leave you. I'll remember enough for both of us." Kushina's fingers tightened around his hand slightly, a subtle gesture, yet it carried everything words could not. In that fragile moment, Naruto felt a deep, unspoken connection, their bond, battered and tested, still alive, still holding. He leaned back slightly, allowing himself to breathe fully for the first time in months. Though the future remained uncertain, he knew one truth above all: love and persistence could endure even the darkest storms. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the room in warm orange and red, Naruto remained steadfast, the quiet guardian of their fragile, unbreakable bond. If you enjoy this fanfic, then please like and subscribe my channel Narutofix 11 for story like this. I hope you'll support me guys. Red heart. Thank you.